Welcome, everyone. Um, Good evening. Welcome to all of you from the International Dyslexia Association Northern New England Alliance serving Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. I'm Jessie Lowe. I'm your president of IDA-NNEA. And welcome to our Read for Parents webinar featuring Joanne Grobecker as she walks us through advocating for your child with dyslexia through the special education process. As a branch, we are thrilled to provide these Read for Parents webinars every other month, which focus on areas of interest to families and educators, as well as the IDA fact sheets. The IDA fact sheets are a great tool in informing families and professionals alike on the journey of dyslexia. As many of you, parents and practitioners, can probably relate, getting structured literacy instruction for students in need is more often than not a difficult journey for parents, students, and teachers. So as a branch, we are honored to bring these informative sessions to you as we work to bring structured literacy to all students in all classrooms, especially those who struggle. Okay, so today, we have supporting our session Andrea Pollock, who is managing the technical aspects of the webinar and will be monitoring and adding valuable links and resources into the chat. And then during the session, please use the chat to respond to prompts from the presenter. Please also write your questions in the chat, and Andrea will help integrate those into the webinar, and as well as present them at the end where we have a 20-minute Q&A. Please note that certificates of attendance are not issued for these Read for Parents webinars as they are free. And then today's webinar recording and handouts will be emailed within the next week and posted on our website. Please consider joining our branch and inviting friends and colleagues to do so. There are many, many advantages, including connecting with our community, staying informed, great deals like IDA TV, and opportunities for expanding your network. And there are so many levels of membership, and if you look there, you'll see that one will definitely fit your needs. If you have questions about membership, please feel free to use the chat or to go over to, you can use the chat to go over membership options with Andrea. Okay, so our branch has a number of activities, including our Read for Parents, Read for Professionals, and those are the ones that give the certificates of attendance, our Wilson collaboration, where we give out some free scholarships to Wilson trainings, newsletters, other scholarships. Be sure to check out the Reading League New Hampshire chapter and Maine chapter for upcoming events. And lastly, we will be holding our annual conference in person this year in Keene, New Hampshire on April 10th, 2026, and please join us and some amazing presenters as we discuss structured literacy in the classroom setting. Okay, it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for this evening, Joanne Grobecker. Joanne is a board member on our board, and she is the Literacy Initiatives and Family Engagement Facilitator at New Hampshire's Parent Information Center. She recently completed her MFed in Literacy and received her BA in English teaching at the University of New Hampshire. She is a lifelong learner and recently completed the LETTERS training program. Joanne believes in the power of families and in providing parents with the resources and training that they need to ensure that their children learn how to read. She is passionate about helping students who are struggling in school and supporting their families. Joanne's greatest joy is her two daughters, who are both reading proficiently in public school. Joanne passionately believes that every child deserves to learn how to read. Welcome, Joanne. We are so excited to have you join us this evening to help parents navigate the special education process and advocate for their children with dyslexia.
Thank you.
Awesome. You should be all set to start sharing when you're ready.
Perfect. Okay, so welcome to our workshop on advocating for your child with dyslexia. I'm excited to be here and share my knowledge with you. There will be time at the end to ask questions. Also, we'll share a link to the slideshow with embedded links in it and any resources. You're free to take pictures of the slides, but you will get this after. And my contact information will be on the last slide if you have questions as well. There we go. Thank you for the introduction. So, like Jesse said, my name is Joanne Grobecker. I'm the Literacy Initiatives and Family Engagement Facilitator at the Parent Information Center. My role is to educate and empower parents to effectively advocate for their children. I have two amazing daughters with dyslexia in public school who are both reading proficiently after I successfully advocated for them. While I was advocating, I discovered the Parent Information Center as well as the International Dyslexia Association. And it's a full circle moment to be here with both. So, representing two organizations that helped me so much as a parent. My passion is really helping families whose children are struggling to read in public school. I believe every child has the right to be taught how to read. And I was lucky enough to be supported on my journey, and I'm here to support you as well. A little bit about the Parent Information Center. When the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act was passed, every state was required to start a parent training center to assist families of school-age students with disabilities. New Hampshire's is called the Parent Information Center. It's important to know that New Hampshire and other states have state-specific laws related to special education. This presentation focuses on New Hampshire's laws and rules. We also have a medical side, New Hampshire Family Voices, that provides resources to family of children with special medical needs. So if you need help filling out waivers, navigating medical insurance, mental health, they're an excellent resource. Their website is a great resource as well. They have a free lending library available to all New Hampshire families. So you can reach out if there's a book you want, they'll send it to you with a prepaid mailing label. They have Wright's Law books on understanding assessments, which is a great resource and I highly recommend. This is a disclaimer that we're not attorneys, but can provide you with information and resources to advocate for your family. Tonight, you'll learn how the Parent Information Center can support parents of children with dyslexia, key aspects of the special education process, advocacy tools and resources tailored for families navigating dyslexia. Our goal is to provide training and resources to parents of students with disabilities. We have a free phone support program where staff assist families with their specific question or situation regarding their child with a disability in school through phone support. We also have virtual and in-person for parents of students with disabilities. We have a variety of workshops. We have a volunteer advocate training program, which is an 8-week program that I took to learn how to successfully advocate for your child. New Hampshire's Parent Information Center has a variety of students for services for students with dyslexia and other disabilities. Last year, PIC created a webpage in partnership with the New Hampshire Department of Education focused on literacy that walks you through understanding how children learn to read, how you can support your child's reading at home, information on New Hampshire's reading screener law and school-based supports, as well as a section for English learners. PICS also created literacy modules that you can watch at your own pace. These include understanding your child's literacy data, learning about how to read your child's New Hampshire SAS report, how to use it to address concerns, activities to support literacy skill development at home. And when you're on this journey as a parent of a child with dyslexia, you're involved in your child's education, but you may not always know what to ask at the conferences and meetings. We created literacy handouts so you can make the best use of time at parent conferences and understand your child's reading instruction and progress in reading. These handouts are hyperlinked in the presentation you'll be provided. New Hampshire has a reading screening law that requires reading screening of all children, kindergarten through third grade in public and charter schools. These handouts are great to bring to a parent conference or meeting to be better informed. PIC also has events that are listed on our webpage and social media, so you can follow to stay up to date. This was just one of my personal favorites. We did a full day event on learning to read and reading assessments. My favorite thing is that we offer at PIC is the intake family phone support. So you can call us and our secretary will take your information and somebody who has lived experience parenting a student with a disability in public school will call you back and give you advice on your personal situation. And it's nice when the people on the other end of the phone know not just the rules of special education, but also kind of how it feels to be a parent walking that journey of a child with dyslexia or other disabilities. We have Pass It On, which is a resource for parents and professionals. And my favorite thing, if we're allowed to have a favorite thing, is the sample forms and letters. These forms can be used to refer for special education, request forms to receive your students' academic testing and academic scores. All of your child's reading screening results are available to you. And sometimes a form can help you make sure that you're receiving the information that you have a right to. So now we'll dive in. So schools can say dyslexia. When my oldest daughter was in first grade, I had never heard of dyslexia. I thought disabilities were physical disabilities. I was unaware that educational disabilities existed or that schools would be hesitant to label educational disabilities. When my second daughter couldn't identify letters in preschool, I knew this was dyslexia as well. I was waiting for someone at the school to tell me she had dyslexia. I got her the reading support she needed in an IEP she already had. It wasn't until I said, "This is dyslexia," that I realized no one else at school was willing to say it first. Even if the school won't say the word dyslexia, I would say it as her mom and write in my parental concerns section of the IEP that she has dyslexia. She did get a diagnosis of dyslexia, but the schools were very hesitant to use the word. People wonder why schools are resistant to using the word dyslexia and evaluations and IEPs. And the reality is that if something has a label, it needs to be supported. So if you need help getting the school to use the term dyslexia, know there is guidance. Sometimes having a label is more than a parent saying that they're concerned. In this presentation, I'll talk about OSAP or OSERS letters. These are official guidance from the U.S. Department of Education to schools. You can use these letters to remind your your school of your child's rights as a student with dyslexia. One of these OSERS letters clarifies the responsibilities of school districts in providing services to children with dyslexia under the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, or IDEA. This letter was issued to clarify that schools can and should use these specific terms like dyslexia when creating an IEP. The purpose of the letter was to clarify, quote, "There is nothing in the IDEA that would prohibit the use of terms dyslexia, dyscalculia, and dysgraphia in the IDEA evaluation, eligibility determinations, or IEP documents." The most applicable part of the memo is when it says that in implementing the IDEA requirements discussed above, they encourage school districts to consider situations when it would be appropriate to use the terms dyslexia, dyscalculia, or math, and dysgraphia, handwriting. And for evaluations, eligibility, and IEP documents. And this is a lot of words just to say that schools can say dyslexia, and using the word dyslexia can be a powerful tool in getting your child the support they need. When your child can't read in public school or they need more instruction than a teacher can provide, a student may benefit from an individual education program or an IEP. The first step in the special education process is the referral. Anyone can refer a child for special education, including the family. The referral needs to be in writing, and PIC has a sample form for that on our webpage that you can use for the referral. When I referred my daughter, I found PIC's website and used their sample referral form. When you're writing your referral letter, you want to include everything in the referral you're concerned about. The referral meeting needs to be scheduled and held by the school within 15 days. At this meeting, you will discuss your concerns and request an evaluation for an IEP in all areas of suspected disability: social, emotional, academic, behavioral. You want to keep everything in writing. My favorite saying is, if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. Schools are not allowed to delay evaluation by trying intervention or waiting to see how an intervention works. There's an OSEP letter from the Department of Education reminding schools that intervention cannot delay evaluation. A common question with parents of students in outside tutoring is if they're still eligible for special education, even though they're only making progress or passing classes because the parents have the child in tutoring outside of school hours, or the parents tutor the child themselves or help with homework. There's also an OSEP letter that I linked here that states that students with high IQ and passing grades can be eligible for an IEP in specific learning disability in reading if their school progress is due to outside tutoring, current accommodations, or I believe the exact word is extraordinary parental support, which most parents of kids with dyslexia know all about providing extraordinary support. That once the IEP team agrees to evaluate for special education and you sign the consent to evaluate form, the school has 60 days to conduct their evaluations. You will want to be sure the evaluations are in all areas of suspected disability. This includes concerns with attention, anxiety, social skills, handwriting, auditory processing. You may have your own private evaluations done, but schools only have to consider outside evaluations and they have the right to do their own. Some schools place restrictions around evaluations, such as limiting it to evaluators who have an office in New Hampshire. The school is required to give you the evaluation reports 5 days prior to the IEP meeting. When you get the evaluation report, you may be overwhelmed. This is dense information. It may be the first time you're reading a test report ever. It's a lot of numbers, a lot of unfamiliar terms. I recommend printing a second copy, write all over it in colored pen, stop to Google new words, stop to take breaks. You can email the person who did the evaluation any questions you have. Sometimes they'll say it has to wait for a team meeting. Sometimes they'll be willing to talk to you as the parent. It's okay. You have to start somewhere. Wright's Law has a book on understanding test scores, which is a valuable resource that New Hampshire Family Voices has in their free lending library that you can request online. My best advice when you're looking at evaluations is convert everything into percentiles. If the test doesn't break scores down to percentiles, you want to, I don't know why it's such a long word, but you want to use a psychometric conversion table to find the percentile. And I know this, it's a long word, it sounds like a lot of work, and people say, can we just skip this part? No, because the reality is that test scores drive so many decisions. Did you know that you can be average and in the 16th percentile? If someone said your child's score was an 85 and they're in the average range, you might agree to stop services or say they don't need services because it sounds okay. An 85 is a B, right? What if you see that an 85 is the 16th percentile? If someone told you your child's the 16th percentile and they wanted to not give them services, does that still sound good? Is that a child who's average or a student who needs support? Average is a very wide range, so you want to know what the percentile is and use the percentiles at the meeting. PIC also has an evaluation data summary sheet. I recommend going through the evaluations with this form, pull out any strengths, needs, recommendations. That way you have all of this information prior to the meeting. The New Hampshire Department of Education created the New Hampshire Dyslexia Guidelines. I was lucky enough to be part of this amazing team that created it. My favorite parts of the guide are the explanation of dyslexia, the list of evaluations on page 33, that's my favorite section if we're allowed to have one, and the information on assistive technology. They did an amazing job on the assistive technology piece of this. It's so much more powerful to have a document from the New Hampshire Department of Education to back up the requests that you're making versus just saying that these are your thoughts as a parent to bring in the New Hampshire Dyslexia Guidelines, and this will be linked in the presentation as well. Part of the eligibility meeting is parent input. You have the right to present your own data and input to the team. Under the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, known as FERPA, you have the right to request your child's records and receive them within 14 days or prior to an IEP meeting. You can bring outside data to the meeting, such as private evaluations, private tutoring progress reports, and student writing samples you have at home. A great way to get grade level data is through the New Hampshire Department of Education SAS Parent Portal, which is for students grades 3 through 8 and 11th grade. It has more information than is on the standard report if you log into the portal, and all parents can access it now on the department website. You do need to request a code from your student's school to log in. I encourage you to write your parent input ahead of time so you can give this team a copy in case you get emotional or nervous in the meeting. It makes it easier to share what you've prepared. The eligibility meeting is to determine if your child is eligible for an IEP. This requires your child to meet the disability category information on one of 14 categories. You can deliberate on more than one category. For example, dyslexia would qualify under specific learning disability, but a student might also have ADHD that's listed as other health impairment. A student can qualify under multiple categories and have them listed on the IEP. Schools may push for a specific category over the other. It's important to remember that the eligibility category does not determine services. The student's needs do. In New Hampshire, an IEP is like a room with all of the services and supports, and each eligibility category is a door to enter that same room. There's an OSEP letter dated May 30th, 2023 that states, quote, therefore, regardless of which eligibility category a child may be classified under, special education and related services are based on the identified needs of the child and not on the disability category in which the child is classified. And this is really important. So you want to be aware that even if an IEP is coded as other health impairment for ADHD, the school can't say, well, this is an ADHD IEP, so we don't do reading services in this, or this is a speech only IEP, so we don't do reading services. You have the right to access all the services that your child is eligible for if they require them. Schools may say a student is meeting grade level standards and is not eligible. There's an OSEP letter that states that outside tutoring has to be factored into consideration for eligibility. Eligibility should be based on a child's ability if they had no help outside, like tutoring, and no accommodations at school. And for eligibility for dysgraphia, talking about handwriting, dyscalculia, like math, and developmental language disorders, OSERS has a letter that states the definitions of the disability terms are not an exhaustive list of disabilities. For example, they talk about how when they created regulations, they talked a lot about specific learning disability, which includes dyslexia, but the list is not exhaustive and can include dyscalculia or dysgraphia. The interpretation of IDEA and its regulations extend to other conditions such as speech and language impairments. So anything in that realm does qualify for specific learning disability. When you have the eligibility meeting, the team will use an eligibility form. Just fun fact, Kearsarge School District has all of their eligibility forms online if you want to see what one looks like. This sample specific learning disability eligibility form discusses meeting grade level standards. Information to show the child is not meeting grade level standards can be used in the evaluations themselves, as well as the New Hampshire SAS testing results, which are available in the NHED portal. Sometimes schools will say a child's not eligible because they're not in an intervention yet, or because they're making progress in their school intervention. This is not true in New Hampshire. The discrepancy model on this sample form shows that it is not necessary for a child to be in an intervention or not making progress in an intervention if a student has a pattern of strengths and weaknesses, which is known as the discrepancy model. The discrepancy model is still used in New Hampshire. And this is my disclaimer that if the team does eligibility and you don't agree, you can contact the Parent Information Center at any time for help navigating your next steps. And then once you are found or your student is found eligible, the next step after eligibility is to write the IEP. I will cover information that we commonly get questions about from parents who have children with dyslexia. The most important part to remember about any IEP meeting is that you are an equal member of the IEP team as a parent. In the special education process, the school gets, it's hard because it's blurred. The school gets one vote and the parent gets one vote. Do not be intimidated by the number of people around the table or all of their credentials. An IEP team's goal is to get a child from one year to the next. Your goal as a parent is to see them through the educational journey. And you know your child best, and you have the right, no matter how many people sit at that table, to know that collectively you have half the vote. The parent gets one vote, the school gets one vote, and until you're in agreement, the IEP that's in existence stays the same once it's written. The most underutilized section of the IEP is the parental concern section. This is the section where you really have voice in the process as the parent. You want to type up your parental concerns, ask the team to copy and paste them into the IEP. This is a place to document all of your child's needs, even the ones that the team is not currently addressing in the IEP. This is a great way to document in the IEP process that the team is aware of all the needs your child has, even unmet needs. This will be important if you have to continue to advocate for unmet needs. IEP should have multiple goals to address all areas of need. There can be goals for school participation, behavior, counseling, speech, PT, OT, even more. Remember, this IEP is based on student need and not the disability category. These are some common goals that you'll see in an IEP if your child has dyslexia. Goals like phonemic awareness, decoding, fluency, comprehension, encoding, or handwriting. These are some goals you may see. Goals should be SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. You hear that a goal should be SMART, but what does that look like? I've taken sample goals from my own children's previous IPs to share with you what these goals may look like. Your child's goals will be based on their individual needs. Phonemic awareness is the foundation that reading is built upon. This goal should be specific about how the student will identify and produce sounds. I have a sample. A lot of times people will say, well, I don't know what the goal means, or the team asked me what I think the goal should be, and I don't know because I'm the parent, and what should a good goal look like? And so I have goals on these slides so you can kind of see, does your goal have all of these things? So this is a phonemic awareness goal. IEP teams might use words like decoding, encoding. Decoding is another word for reading individual words. Encoding is another word for spelling. Goals for decoding or reading words are sometimes called phonics goals in IEPs. These goals should be specific and measurable. This is a sample goal that was from one of my daughter's IPs that I really like a few things about it. One is that it's specific about how many syllables the word is. It explains close, CVS, open, CV, silent E, VCE, syllable patterns, and then it gives examples. I like to see examples in goals so that everyone's aware of exactly what we're measuring. Then you'll notice this one says the student will decode the words with 90% accuracy, progress measured by weekly data collection. And I've been in presentations where they have people read um, these things out loud, and I would never do that to anyone because we know that dyslexia is genetic, and 80% of people with dyslexia received it from their parents. So I would never put a grown up on this spot. But when writing the IEP goal, it's important that the goals are written for 90 to 100% accuracy. This slide from the Mississippi Department of Education shows that if a student can only read 80% of the words, they will not understand what they're reading. Most IEP goals are written for 80% accuracy, but the reality is that if you cannot decode with 98% accuracy, you will not understand what you're reading. Decoding or reading words is the key to comprehension and understanding what you're reading. I will say, as a parent who advocated very hard for two children with dyslexia, the suggestion of repeated readings for fluency concerned me after seeing repeated readings with my oldest in FMP to memorize books instead of learning to decode. What helped me understand the value in repeated reading for fluency was seeing the Hasbrook and Tyndall chart and knowing her tutor was using a curriculum that was based on grade level and had comprehension questions to answer at the end. Seeing the data weekly for me as a parent was helpful. They would talk about cold reads and hot reads at the IEP meeting. Cold meant that it was the student's first time reading the passage, and hot means that they've read it previously. It's a lot to learn all these new terms, but the more you can use the reading terms in the meetings that the school's using, the more the school sees you as an equal team member. So what my daughter would do with her reading instructor is she would do a cold read. So her first time reading it cold would be on a Monday, and she would graph. That was really motivating for her to graph her own reads. So she would graph her correct words per minute. You want to do the correct words per minute. She would graph and then do another read on Wednesday and then a hot read on Friday and graph the correct words read per minute. It was motivating for my daughter to see the graph over time and understand when reading passages moved up a grade level that the scores are going to drop because you're reading harder information. So you can kind of tell this is a fifth grade goal just based on the chart, which will be in the presentation, but just how you read it. It has the grade in the first column, and you want you want to be average. The goal is to be average, and so you want to look at the 50th percentile and say, okay, so if we're in fifth grade, 50th percentile in the fall is 121 words correct per minute. And in the spring is going to be 146 words correct per minute. So that's what we're going to be trying to do. And you'll notice this is measured weekly. My children did not have comprehension goals, but many children do. Comprehension is an important skill to understand the meaning behind the text. This includes understanding really the W's of what's happening, who, what, when, where, why. Dyslexia has a really high correlation with ADHD and autism, and students may need help with inferencing and other comprehension skills involved in fiction text. The ability to make inferences about what's happening based on clues in the text include things such as how are the characters feeling? What might the characters do next? Being able to read and decode the words is important, but once the students in third grade and kids move from learning to read to reading to learn, it's important that they can not only read the words, but think about the text and make inferences. And you'll notice this goal is also written for 90% accuracy. So if my daughter had orthographic dyslexia, so spelling was really difficult, I had to advocate hard for a spelling goal because it was important for me that she was able to write clearly and her sight words as well as read them. Um, you'll find a lot of teams will push back on spelling because they don't interpret that the same way as reading. This is something that I think is really important to be able to spell. And this was actually something that I noticed over the summer. She was spelling when, W-E-N-E. And so I emailed the IEP team. You can call a meeting anytime. So we called a meeting over the summer. And if a parent requests an IEP meeting, the team meets within 21 days. And we discussed, how are we going to learn how to spell? What's the plan for learning to spell? We focused on the fry words, which are the 100 most commonly used words in the English language for reading. And we used visual mnemonic cards. Amazon has them called Sight Words You Can See. Her amazing instructor actually made her own cards. This is my theater star. So they had a visual mnemonic, and it's four, and there's puppies for each person. And then she would pick a tune and have a song, and there was a dance. It was a whole thing. But that was how they encoded in her brain because you really need repetition with dyslexia. And it's important towards the end that you can't just write the words from dictation. Someone says write four and you can write four, but the next step when your child's mastered a goal is you want to use, which is the word in here, generalization. And that's a question you can start asking, like, if my child can do this one-on-one with a grown-up, is it generalized into the general education classroom? So you want to make sure that they can generalize the skill and do it in the classroom when they're doing writing. Written expression is something that students with dyslexia may struggle with. For a lot of children, there's a crossover between dyslexia and ADHD and autism, and graphic organizers can be distracting for some kids. Linear graphic organizers, which sometimes are in the shape of a hamburger, are really helpful for students that need help organizing their thoughts in a linear way. This really helps build out and focus on what you want to say. You can see in this goal, it's like a really long goal because this is towards the end of the journey where I knew exactly what we wanted. Um, and we had just a really phenomenal educated team that we were just really lucky to be so supported at school. And they were able to write out the goal, and they specified in what's independent, what is the student doing on their own, what are they doing with an adult. And you'll notice that this goal generalizes the spelling. So this is about writing a 5-sentence paragraph, but it also includes capitalization, punctuation, and accurate spelling of the introduced word patterns. And this one is 80% accuracy because we did 3 writing samples. And this is most data is collected weekly with writing because it's a process. This was a goal. The team had been collecting data weekly and sharing it out to the team. And we realized the writing goal, like collecting it weekly, didn't quite make sense. You didn't get the full picture. So it made more sense to share it monthly because writing is a whole process. Reversals are common for students with dyslexia. One of my children did not have dyslexia. My youngest daughter can read proficiently now, but she did have reversals. And we used a variety of methods at home. But what really helped the most is, and they're free online, the Lively Letters videos on YouTube, and there's other ones like like the baby, like D wears a diaper, B has a belly. There's like B is a bat, and just practice, practice, practice. We would do this at home and it doesn't have to be long, but just 5 minutes, and you pull out. We would have like kinetic sand in a tub, those like gel magnet boards, tracing boards, really anything, finger on different textures, sponges, sandpaper, just practice, practice, practice saying those like mnemonic sayings over and over, like D wears a diaper, B has a belly, and just practice, practice, practice. You want to request all the progress monitoring data be sent weekly or biweekly or at another frequency so you can make sure that your child's making progress. You only get an IEP progress report when you get regular report cards, so it's important to ask to get data more often and write that in the IEP. If you're trialing a new intervention, not sure if it's working, it's really important that you're tracking progress on the goal. in the IEP grid, it'll say method of reporting to parent. It usually defaults to grading period report card. And for a lot of goals, that's enough time. If you know your child's making progress, they're with a skilled educator, the program's working for them, then you can kind of like set it. You're seeing the progress at home. If you're trialing something new, if there's different communication going on in the team, if you're not sure if this is the right program, sometimes it makes sense to really make sure the team's tracking progress on a more frequent basis so you can see if progress is stalled, if the child's not making progress, and have that conversation. How long do we trial this before we discuss making a change to it? When students are getting intervention or the IEP team's writing service into the IEP, it's important to ask questions like, what is the experience and qualifications of the person delivering services? What is the program being used? Where is my child on the scope and sequence? Not the group, but your child. You can Google what a scope of sequence is, but it's really just the order in which they're teaching the skills needed to read. And that's something that you can ask. And a lot of times they can show you what the scope and sequence is, where the class is, where your child is. And that's a way to visually see that your child's making progress and know what skills they're working on if you want to practice those at home. People want to know if the school can write Wilson, LIPS, other methodologies like Orton Gillingham into the IEP. Guidance provided by the Federal Department of Education states if an IEP team determines that specific instructional methods are necessary for the child to receive FAPE, the instructional methods may be addressed in the IEP. This is where the "we're not attorneys" slide came from. At the beginning, as a non-attorney, special education advocate, I cannot tell you what is legal, but I will say that courts have upheld that integrated multisensory sequential method is a necessity rather than an optimum situation, and that it's clear that when developing IEPs, that an integral part of being individual is for a child with a learning disability who has not learned with other instructional methods is that they may require a different instructional strategy. And so all that to say is that will a school automatically write in that they're using a specific program into the IEP? Probably not, unless it's a program they're using with all kids in the intervention. Can they write specific programs into an IEP? Yes, because sometimes students need a specific program. And if something is working for your child and they have done different programs and found one that works for your child, it makes sense to document that in the IEP so you can document what the child is currently receiving. Assistive technology is necessary for many students to access grade level curriculum. When a student enters third grade, there's usually a switch in the class from learning to read to reading to learn. Students who are reading below grade level will need help to access the reading. There's a lot of reading in math and other subjects. If a student cannot read and write, they may have difficulty accessing other subjects. We were talking backstage in the Zoom before everyone came in about the high correlation between students with a very high IQ and dyslexia, which is why the discrepancy model still exists in New Hampshire, is because very intelligent people have dyslexia and need a specific way of learning to read, but they are very intelligent and they have a right to access the same information as their peers. And so assistive technology is a way to get that information in and out of a child so that they're able to fully participate in the classroom. Assistive technology is documented in two places in the IEP. I'll admit I was personally resistant to assistive technology because I was really nervous that it would be a crutch or my daughter wouldn't learn to read or write if she used it. And the opposite is actually true because if a child can't access grade level curriculum, they need assistive technology or they're going to be left behind academically and it impacts their self-esteem. You, as the parent, can request an assistive technology evaluation at any time so a specialist can assess your child to find the programs that work for them. This might look like speech to text, text to speech, audiobooks, reading pens, worksheets uploaded to a Chromebook so students can use speech to text or a screen reader. It also involves a lot of low-tech things. My daughter with orthographic dyslexia loved the like Wilson speller or Webster spellers from, I guess they were really popular in the early 90s. And it's just like a small device. We actually just bought it off Amazon and it can predict over 80,000 words based on the phonetic spelling. And it was incredibly accurate. So we wrote it into the IP as an accommodation, but it was just a little, she didn't like using the Chromebook or speech to text. So she wanted to do pencil and paper. And so it was just a little, she called it her spelling calculator, little device she could pull out, spell check the words herself, and keep on writing. And that's so important because when you're writing, if you start writing things incorrectly, it can encode it in your brain incorrectly. So you want to be sure that you're spelling as accurately as you can. In the dyslexia guide that we'll send out, there's a great section on assistive technology that we have linked on our webpage. The assistive technology is evaluation is important. Sometimes what the school offers, a lot of times they offer it to all kids who want a speech to text or use the screen reader. If your child, if it's not working for them, if they're still not able to access those social studies books, or they're still not able to understand what the math worksheets say, sometimes having an actual assistive technology evaluation enables the team to figure out what, not just what works for your child to be able to access the information, but what is your child going to use in a classroom? Because if they're a kid that is not going to start saying things into a microphone, then you could have the best program in the world, but if your kid won't use it in the classroom in front of their peers, or if they prefer something more high tech, low tech, you want to make sure that you're offering to your child what works for them and what they will willingly use. It's not helpful to have, and this is where sometimes, parents want to get what the best thing is, and the best thing is really whatever your child will use and can access an education with. It is springtime now in New Hampshire, so people are talking about ESY. Children with dyslexia need repetition to reach mastery. They may need to continue their reading program over the summer. Schools sometimes will say that their ESY program or summer reading program is a program for a group of kids on certain days at certain times with a certain schedule. This is not your child's only option. They have the option to continue their reading intervention they're doing at school over the summer with the same program and a teacher with the same qualifications if that's what they require to access an education. There's guidance from the New Hampshire Department of Education that says ESY cannot be a predetermined program design. I have included the wording that I'd used in my own child's IEP just because it was really well written. There's also a module, I think PIC just shared it to their Facebook page on ESY if you're looking to dive into that topic specifically. If you enjoyed this workshop, we have upcoming workshops on the special education process. We also have an upcoming workshop on assistive technology in April. And then in May, the Read for Parents for the Dyslexia Association, we have, I'm going to say his last name wrong, Cody's doing a workshop for parents on dysgraphia or handwriting, which is going to be really great. I'm excited for that one. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. We'll share the slideshow with you that's embedded with all the links with the resources referenced. I know it was a lot. I encourage you to reach out to the Parent Information Center for free consultations. If you have any questions, my email's here. And I just want to thank everyone for coming. It was great to have you. And I think we're going to do a little Q&A. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. There we go.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. I'm just going to put into the chat. So anyone who is still on watching, I added a document earlier in the chat that had all of the direct links. That way you don't have to kind of fish through all the slides. I did just now add the Google slide presentation so you can view it and click on the links if you prefer that route, whatever you'd prefer. I did also add the links into the chat for the upcoming PIC events, and then I'll put the ones for the upcoming IDA events soon. So thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Jen. That was fantastic.
Yes,
Amazing.
so Michelle has a
You see
great
it? Okay,
question.
good.
Yeah, do you want, I can people, I'll read them. So, how do you advocate for continued services and explicit instruction as your child enters high school? Yes, we were just talking about this and is beginning to be expected to read and understand grade level content curriculum. Yep, dyslexia is neurobiological in nature, lifelong implications, increase in information impacts the cognitive load, and accommodations doesn't prepare enough? And that's an excellent question. It's something, oh, and in college. Yeah, so there is no timeline with dyslexia. Sometimes people will say, well, like, I think we missed the boat because my kid's in fifth grade. There is no IDA lasts until the day before your 22nd birthday. And so there is no timeline for when your child can get reading intervention at school. Once they hit, I would say middle school is when scheduling becomes more complicated for administrators, but that's not really your concern as a parent because credits start happening in high school. And I will say the important thing in high school is to work with the guidance office. PIC has a whole section on, they call it transition when you're moving in it's different in different states, but in the state of New Hampshire, when you turn 14, an IEP has to have the transition plan. So asking your child, what do you want to do in life, which is hard when you're 14, because I still don't know and I'm in my 40s, but what do you want to do in life and what does the school need to do to support you to get there? And you want to be sure when you enter the high school age, a lot of the conversation is around making sure that the credits you set your child on a path in high school so the credits allow them the time they need in high school. And the important things is to be doing a credit audit. So at least once a year, checking in with the guidance department, auditing the credits to make sure if your child's sitting in a class, are they getting the same amount of credits as their peers, or is the school considering that modified and giving them less credits? And if their special education services or their career path or the cognitive load, the amount of energy they're expending learning to read or reading in their classes means that 4 years of high school might be too much for them and they could use a fifth year. It looks like charting out that path and building out the credits and study halls and making sure that it works for your child. And this is a conversation to have with your child because, graduation it is a thing, but also this is the rest of your life. So does this look like we give you 5 years so that you can do all your intervention? But definitely, I would say right before graduation is when we get a rush of calls for people who just found out their kids graduating and they thought they had until they were 22, or people who found out their kid isn't graduating, but they thought they were on track because they're sitting in the classes as their peers, but their curriculum is considered modified because of their disability. So I would say auditing, doing a credit audit is the most important thing. Also, if your child's going to be taking tests like the SATs, the ACTs, you have to apply for the accommodations. You can't say because you have an IEP it's enough. You have to apply and you want to give the guidance office plenty of time to be sure that your child can get those. Oh, the spell checker, I know. Name of the speech to text device, describe it as speaker. Oh, so that was just like a speller. It's like spelled like a little handheld spell check, which we bought on Amazon. And someone said, "Oh my gosh, we had a box of those in a storage cabinet from the 90s." But yeah, that was popular. Another popular
I'll
thing they
attach a
have.
link right now.
Yeah,
Sorry.
they have yeah, and that was just perfect, like low tech way. If your kid wants to, write in a like, writing in the diary, like those, your kid doesn't always want a Chromebook out. And so being able to have that low tech way to check their spelling so that they can be understood or reread what they wrote. Spelling pens are also really popular because kids can have like earbuds and it's not like your Chromebooks are reading something to you. You can go, math is so language heavy now. Are we allowed to have personal pet peeves? So many math programs are language heavy. And if your kids, if the thing they're successful at is math, you don't want reading to hold them back at what they're successful at. So having a reading pen, you still need the reading intervention, but having a way to access that information is so important. Tech support on staff. Tech is illegal to attack without. So if your child has assistive technology, you have the right. So the way to go about it is in the IEP, you can write in consults with the team. So you'll write in a consult with the team and the parent. You can also write parent training into the IEP, which some people like to do, but I found the best way is where you have the consults to the team. It's not enough for somebody to set up assistive technology with the child. That's really great. But most kids, most adults, the person who's uploading it found kind of the barrier is looping in the classroom teacher, because if the child is trained by somebody on how to use this assistive technology and that person's contracted, now the child's in the classroom, the child's not uploading their own worksheets to Google Docs. It's the science teacher. Does the science teacher know how to do that? Probably not. So you want to build in a consultation with the team, with whoever's running the assistive technology. And as a parent, you can ask to be invited to those so that you're aware, so that you can support this at home. But yeah, it's very important that you consider not just your child having access, but also that the staff members have access. I think that was all
Great
the,
question.
yes, assistive technology is not a replacement for specialized instruction. Yes, and that's why I was so resistant as a parent. I was like, no, you're not giving my kid a reading pen. You're going to teach her how to read. And they were like, but she's so smart and can't understand our whole unit on Greek gods. So that's going to be important that she's able to access audiobooks and ways to read the books.
Hmm.
Yes, definitely. Michelle adds in, make sure that the assistive technology devices are being synced between home, school, tech school. Also, if your kid's in other activities like scouts or youth group, or there's reading involved in a lot in life, and making sure that there's technology that can go with them to the places that's important to them.
Wonderful. Thank you for those amazing explanations. Transition happens in the community as part of transition. I will say it's funny
Yes.
working in a school district. I know some of my students, we have like Chromebooks, and then when they get to the high school, they get MacBooks. So stuff from some of our students who have the assistive technology or like certain extensions and tools, they almost have to either re-download them or figure out how to use it differently depending on the device that they're working on. So awesome. If there is any more questions this evening that we can ask Joanne, please feel free to pop them into the chat. I'll give it another second. Anyone, if you didn't get the links, please scroll through the chat. I'll repost them one more time. I am going to post one more set of links. Oh, I did see something pop through. Okay. Thank you so much for offering this virtually. I love that. I agree. I'm going to post one more set of links into the chat for this evening. These are some upcoming events as well. Let me just share my screen. Ooh, struggling.
Yeah, I'm so excited for the dysgraphia workshop. There's not a lot
Right?
out there.
Very exciting. All right. Go ahead, Jesse.
Hi. Yes. So, um, this is so exciting. IDA-NNEA is transitioning back to holding our first in-person conference in years, and we're so excited to present this to you. So it's the science of reading, the art of teaching, structured literacy in practice, and this will be April 10th in Keene, New Hampshire. We will have the whole day with multiple presenters: Nicole Chick from Early Literacy Labs, Amy Ducey from the Stern Center, Donna Mastrovito from Keys to Literacy, and the focus will be structured literacy in the classroom setting, fluency, syntax, and building sentence to paragraph writing. Very exciting. Join us. And then on May 9th, we are offering a Read for Parents session with occupational therapist Cody Lukasic as he explains dysgraphia and breaks down specific OT skills of writing and discusses strategies for improvement there. Very exciting. And then we are also offering a Read for Professionals on adolescent literacy with Carrie Harris and Laurelyn LeBombard. And together they have implemented structured literacy into their middle school classroom in a local school in New Hampshire. And they are passionate about making this reading accessible and enjoyable for all students. And during this webinar, they will discuss their experiences and share tips for getting started with structured literacy in your own classroom. So that's a fantastic topic, very exciting. So please join us. As you finish this experience, please complete our survey at the end of the session. And thank you so much to Joanne. Thank you, Joanne and Parent Information Center, for joining us this evening. Thank you.